Yo!
Hey there, welcome to Space Lemonade Stand. I'm Madisyn.
And I'm Terry, and we got a freshly squeezed podcast for you today.
Oh yeah, but it's not a normal podcast because if you listen to our last podcast, we are on our way to Animal Planet. But, Terry.
We are in transit. We have popped out of sleep space, or whatever it is whenever you're frozen in space.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about something that we kind of like. It's our background, it's our passion. It's I don't know if it's our passion, but I like it. We're both these things. We are graphic designers. We like design.
Yeah, so we're graphic designers. So we wanted to talk a little bit about today why we chose design. Talk a little bit about design school, because I feel like this could be a really helpful podcast for people who are considering design school. Kind of talk about our expectations versus what actually happened. Mm-hmm. And also...
our influences.
Yeah. And maybe a little bit about the old working world.
Yeah, a bit about breaking your back. Okay. What made you want to get into design?
So, originally, I was a creative writing major. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, I was a creative writing major, and...
I know you're really good at writing. You like...
I'm okay.
Whenever it comes to writing, you overachieve. I remember there would be projects in class where we'd like have to write like a little... a small brief about our concepts, and Madisyn would come in with a 32-page document about why her concept is the best.
Stop it.
But yeah, when it comes to writing, I've always known you to be very good.
Well, thank you. That's very nice. Very sincere of you.
Not just because there are people listening. Oh.
Yeah, she's great. No.
She's really cool. Look her up.
Yeah. But anyways, creative writing was fun in high school, but I just really was interested in graphic design, mostly because I liked working in the Adobe programs, and my initial thought was that graphic design is art, but you get paid for it.
Yeah.
So it's applicable art as compared to fine art, which...
You have to do a whole lot of work. You have to jump through a lot of hoops, and
it takes a lot to be a successful fine artist. And even then, that really didn't interest me, being a fine artist. So, I went to UCO, and I was like, I'll do graphic design as my major and creative writing as my minor. And then I dropped creative writing as my minor because I hated every class that had to do with it. Just because the people they just weren't my people, and the design school people were my people. So that's kind of how I chose it. So what about you, Terry? Why did you choose design?
I chose it for, I wasn't a creative writer, but I had the same kind of thought that, I'm really good at illustration, and I do all this stuff. I've done a lot of art classes in high school. I'm going to go to UCO. And I'm going to give design a try. And it was nothing like art at all. There are fundamentals that kind of tie the two together between fine art and design. Mm-hmm. However, there's pay, as you said. Two, there's a reason for graphic design that kind of forces you away from what an artist would do. I remember starting graphic design, and I had a struggle with my mental set of, this is just like art. I can do this. This is just like art. I can do this. And then it didn't work out, and I got whiplash within the first year. And then it was like, oh, you're not good at this. You're not good at graphic design. You are a fake. And I just had to practice and get better. And I don't know how you started with the graphic design and the program. Was it the same, or did you immediately kind of get it?
Well, I remember, so UCO I'm not sure how other design schools approach teaching.
This is all just from UCO standpoint.
Yeah, UCO being University of Central Oklahoma. Their approach is the first year is, they call them what do they call them?
Foundations?
Foundations. They call them foundations. And basically, you don't touch a computer the entire first year. And I remember being really frustrated by that.
Same.
You work with the very basics of art and
things that you don't even need. Like Plaka. What's that?
What's that? Plaka.
Yeah.
But you draw a lot of circles. You do a lot of shading, learn about contrast. And, like, they're important things. And I feel like a lot of people don't realize that they're using things that they learned in foundations. And they just think to themselves, oh, I didn't get to touch a computer, you know, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But I think it's really important because it teaches you how to design, because, you know, a lot of people get into design school and they're like, all right, let's get Photoshop open.
Let's pick the biggest word. Let's pick the most decorative fonts.
Yeah.
And that's not really design.
That's not what it's about. It's about getting across your message to the people that you want to get it across to.
In a simple yet creative way.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes not simple. But definitely in a creative way.
It honestly, if you break it down, for me, like, the best designs are always so complex. But if you were like write it down and be like, oh, that's very simple. It did take a lot of work for me to figure out that graphic design has a purpose higher above looking good, and I was all about just making things that looked good.
Yeah. The thing beyond looking good is it functional? You know, a big part of graphic design, I mean, look at, you know, medicine packaging, for example. You have to have all of that information there, and it has to be readable so that people aren't taking the wrong amount. And you have to have a place for the barcode so that people can sell it. And you have to have a place for all the ingredients, and it has to be able to be read by, I don't know, like grandmas.
Especially grandmas.
Because,
you know, they're not going to read it anyway. No. My grandma doesn't read any of her medicine. I remember... that's pretty dark. She just takes them all.
Grandma's been called out. Your grandma's going to listen to this and be like, Terry.
She said, oh, ay Dios mío. And I'll be like, okay, Grandma. Gosh, I just had something that made me think. It made me think. That's it.
Made you think of thunk.
It's a first. It's coming to my brain. Gosh, sometimes whenever you're designing, how do you start a design? This is just a very broad question. Do you write it out? Do you sketch first?
So what I will do, it depends on what I'm doing. So if it's something that is quick and it's just kind of be like a one and done thing, I'll just go ahead and sit down at the computer and just crank it out. Mm-hmm. Usually I'm pretty good at kind of visualizing what I want, and then once I get it into Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, whatever it is I'm working in, those are like my main three, then I'll do that. But recently I worked on something where I had to sketch it out because it was multiple pages, whatever, but I feel like sketching it out really helps, and then I'll take it to digital and crank it on out. But yeah, something that they had us do in design school is like crank out 100 thumbnails on something. And thumbnails, if you're not aware, are just little mini drawings of what you're going to be doing. And it's basically so that you can figure out your layout, what it is you're going to be making, and it's just so that you can explore almost every option inside your brain.
Do you think that was beneficial that they made us do that?
I think it was beneficial in design school, because I feel like design school is all about building up a portfolio so that you can get hired. Whenever you are working, though, a lot of the stuff that you do is smaller, and it's quicker, and it's going to be seen for a shorter amount of time. And I think on bigger projects, thumbnails are great.
Yes.
But on smaller projects, it's kind of like, here's a good idea, let's run with it immediately.
Yeah. The point of thumbnails is, it feels to me like a foundations kind of technique the more you do it, the less you have to. Because at work, we both work at graphic design firms.
Yeah.
Would you say
Agencies?
firms? Agency? I'd say agency, yeah. And I rarely have to like do sketching unless it's for a bigger project. Because I've lived them all. I remember teachers would say, I've done thumbnails so many times that I don't really have to do that many because they've seen it all. They know what works, what doesn't work. And granted, that doesn't mean you'll never do thumbnails again, but it definitely means that you have a mental memory that allows you to put the pieces together. Because a design is like a puzzle. Like once you have all the pieces, you can. It's up to you to rearrange it to make it fit, to make it work.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's just a big. That's why I really like design, is because it's like a problem. It's like you're the Scooby-Doo gang.
Yeah.
In your mystery machine, and you've got this mystery to solve. Like, how do I tell these people about, I don't know, like, how do I brand this energy drink? That's something we had to do.
Have you ever designed something that you like so much that you'll look at it like again? I'm just like, man, this look like it's not even. I've had that happen. It's not even like a big project. I'll just go back and look at this template I made. Like, ooh, that's a smooth template. It's like if I were to tell somebody like in the real world, this is like, look at this template I made. They're like, what is this? What is this garbage?
That's some nice squares and text, but yeah, like other people don't understand. But like, you know, if you showed such a template to me, you'd probably be like, ooh, look at this template. And I'd be like, oh, whoa.
That's a nice template.
Nice template.
Because it really isn't just you can do whatever you want to do. I'm sure you know with design, graphic design has a purpose, and that purpose usually has guidelines, and those guidelines have to be followed. And if it looks out of place, and I have like this motto where if it doesn't work, you change it. If it doesn't look good, if it doesn't, not necessarily look good, if it doesn't serve any purpose, it doesn't need to be there. And I whenever I finish or I'm stuck on a design or I'm working on something and I see that this just is making me work harder, not necessarily that I shouldn't work harder, because we do. If it doesn't work, then it doesn't need to be there. Just rethink it, and maybe even save it. That you can save an idea for later.
Yeah. I think something that a lot of people struggle with whenever they begin to design, they don't design so much as decorate. They put the text on, and then they put decoration around it.
I agree.
And they don't think about that function, about how your eye is going to travel, about about emphasizing certain things compared to others, about font selection and readability. Like that, those are all things that you learn whenever you're in design school. So I work at a place where it's me and two other people. I work at a place.
Whoa, you work?
I get a paycheck and everything.
That's really good Canadian.
Oh, yeah. I've also got a friend from Wisconsin. Wisconsin.
It's funny because Madisyn just brought in her two friends, and they just sound just like her, but with different accents.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Madisyn, you won't even believe it. What you in here doing this here podcast for? Oh my goodness. Oh boy.
All right.
Anyways, Terry, you work at a larger place than mine. I work with two other people, and it's me and them, and that it. I work at a firm agency that has, I think, 60 plus people. And it has 3 locations. Yeah.
So it's funny because you said that you would consider my place big, but I would not consider my place big in comparison in the grand scheme of like big corporate design. Because I don't consider my place corporate design. I don't have to dress up super nice unless it's for like a client meeting. And I don't know if you have to dress up.
It's jeans and t-shirt every day.
My biggest fear is that I'm going to eventually become out of touch with what I'm working with, because it's gonna. I hope it doesn't happen, but I've seen it happen to people. Like our teachers or even people I work with that have been in the game a really long time. They do it because it's what they were taught, like an old way. And I'll see files. I'm just like, why do you do it like this, or why is it like this? And it's a very real problem that can happen to anyone where I'll open a program or a file that I was like, oh, this is definitely going to be an InDesign. This is what the tool calls for. You don't use a hammer where you need a saw. And I'm just like, what is this? Why do you guys do all this work making this really big file whenever it would make a really small InDesign file and be easily editable later on?
Yeah.
And that's not calling them out. This is just the way that
they learn.
The clock turns. It's like I'm probably going to do something later on where a new designer is going to be like, why do they use Photoshop when they can use GlibGlob to edit their photos? I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah, that's kind of something that I'm also afraid of, but I feel like, I don't know, I guess we'll see as we get older, because really in the grand scheme of things, we're pretty young.
Too young.
We are too young. We're just two babies and a couple bassinets with a couple microphones.
I can draw.
I can draw good. What if somebody is thinking about being a graphic designer?
Oh, yes.
Should they go to graphic design school, and what should they look for when they're looking for a graphic design school? What do you think?
Cannot tell you if you want to go to the graphic design school or not. To me, this is becoming more of an overarching question of, should you go to higher education? There are people who can design who don't go to design school. There are people who can do a thing and not go to higher education for it. Does it make it easier for them? Yes and no. No, in the sense that you don't have that special piece of paper. Yes, in the sense that experience talks quite a bit. But should you go to design school? In my opinion, yes, because you are immediately influenced by teachers who know the field. You have freedom to explore when I don't think you'd have that kind of a freedom to explore whenever you're on your own, because where do you start when you're by yourself? Like my teachers like, do Photoshop, do InDesign, do After Effects, touch on Dreamweaver for whatever reason. Look at Flash for a second for whatever reason. Read a book, cut some paper up, I guess. And these things all added to me, but they may not transfer to another person.
Yeah.
My only word of advice is, if you want to be a graphic designer, is you really have to want it. I'm not saying you can't try it, and then not like, I'm just saying if you like it, you have to want it. You have to want to be a graphic designer. You have to keep going and put time into it, because nobody gets anything overnight.
Yeah. And you absolutely cannot be stubborn, because the more stubborn you are, the more set in your ways and unwilling to improve yourself you are, the more that you think, oh, I know this, so I don't need to change the way that I've been doing this. Like, it's not going to work, because graphic design changes, every day, pretty much. What styles are in now, what's topical. I mean, if you stick to, I don't know the way that you do things, I don't know. But, I mean, I think that people should go to design school. Absolutely, because, I mean, there are those people who are just naturally good at it, but that's like anything, But, I mean, who would you trust more with, giving you surgery? Somebody who
read a book about being a doctor.
Who read a book about being a doctor, or somebody who actually put in the time and the work and the effort to, go about it. And, like, it's awful to say, but even though they're a cheaper option, I don't think that technical schools are a good place to get a graphic design education.
Maybe for you. I'm joking. Um,
Because, I mean, comparatively, somebody who goes to a 4-year college and learns how to design, like we did, compared to somebody who goes to a technical school for 2 years to learn Photoshop, they don't necessarily learn how to design so much as use the programs.
yes.
And that's kind of something that I've seen whenever I look at people, around me. And so, like, if you're thinking about going to a design school, oh my gosh.
Something fell.
If you're thinking about going to a design school, I feel like you really need to do your research. Things that I think you should look for are, first of all, look at people who have gone there. Look at their portfolios. Look at
Where they work.
their LinkedIn, if where they're working is a place that you would also like to work, maybe look into that. Also, if you feel comfortable sending people cold emails, be like, hey, I'm interested in going to such and such college for graphic design, and I see on LinkedIn, which is like Facebook for businesses, that you went there, and I just wanted to know if you really liked your experience there, or if you could, do it all over again. Would you go somewhere else? And,
Would you do UC all over again?
oh yeah,
Ooh, man.
I would.
I loved UCO, but looking back, all those all-nighters, of course, I don't think we had different experiences, but they're very tough.
Yeah.
Everyone struggles their own way, but I had all-nighters. We all had all-nighters. We had tough concepts. We had projects where we had to work with people that we like, but not that much. We've had to do.
Those people are like the only people who couldn't listen to this podcast. They're gonna be like, "What? Are they talking about me?"
I hate them. I know I'm talking about you. No. Just cut that out. Just bleep it out.
Yeah. I'll bleep it out.
Just put something else over it.
Yeah, and another thing, if they've won awards, look at local design awards. Something to look into that's pretty much all over the United States is American Advertising Awards or the Addies. Look and see what schools are winning on that student level, because if they're winning, then that means that they're entering. And
that shows a lot of commitment into the game itself.
yeah, and it's very impressive whenever you are applying to places. Whenever they see, oh, you won an Addie, that shows that
Is an Addie a national thing though?
American Advertising Awards. Well, we call them, they have regional, state,
Yeah.
and national.
Yeah.
I think people are impressed if you've won any.
Okay.
Because it's so hard to win on the national,
Yeah.
or not on the national level, but the professional level. I don't know.
Just look for places that entering any contest. It feels like that gives you the push to see where you can go.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to talk about influences?
Yeah, let's talk about them influences.
Leave this in.
As a graphic designer, you want to look at influences. You want to look at, people to inspire you. Not necessarily to copy, but to inspire you. And whenever you're a starting out designer, I encourage you to look at specific people. And please, for the love of all things merciful and, holy in the world, please do not look at Pinterest.
I was about to say, look at Pinterest.
No!
I was joking.
No, 'cause
I've
you
looked at Pinterest, but not for design, because I'm illustration heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at Pinterest, and I also look at Behance, and I wallow in tears, because Behance has stiff competition, but I don't know how that reflects in the design or business world.
Mm-hmm.
But continue, because...
But yeah, whenever you look at Pinterest for inspiration, you can tell, and you become what I refer to as a Pinterest designer, where you use all the brush fonts and the very clean, cutesy kind of looking stuff with geometric shapes, and that's cool whenever you're learning. But I feel like at some point you are just adding to something that already exists, and it's nothing special or original. And it's very hard to have an original thought whenever you're looking at inspiration on Pinterest all the time, because it's just such a bombardment of information. You know? Do you guys pick up what I'm putting down?
No. No, not at all. No, I agree. You can only look at something so much. Like, it's a really strange limbo we as designers go through of, is this original? Is this not original? How much do I borrow? How much is this influenced? Am I influenced? Is this project influenced? Does this look like something else? How much do I have to change? And it's a lot of work. And for influences, I've definitely used Pinterest to look at, I guess, infographics. What kind of what makes a good infographic? You can find good design if you look for it. And one of the starts of being a designer is looking for good design. And I'm not saying Pinterest necessarily. You can go to Behance and look for designers, because that place, Behance, has like a lot of illustrators, it has video makers, it has 3D designers, it has all these other things.
Yeah.
And you have to search for what you're trying to accomplish, so to speak.
Another good one is Dribble.
Yes,
Dribble kind of shows you more of like a process. That's kind of where designers and illustrators will throw up stuff. Not like, bleh, but like toss things up there that they're working on that doesn't come to fruition sometimes.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think it's important to have people to look to, because it also will kind of show you their, is trajectory the right word, where it starts, point A,
the curve.
Kind of just shows, their, you can see their process. And I don't know, I think it's very important to kind of have direction.
And yeah, there's nothing wrong with having like peers as influences. They don't have to be necessarily somebody who's old or necessarily wise. I've definitely gotten, like, I've learned new techniques from pals who focus on a certain type of design. I'm like, I want to dip my toes in that design. I want to do some stippling or some clean fonts, or some simplistic or some very serious design.
Yeah, I've used for my inspiration for like illustration.
Yeah.
I've completely stolen everything.
I've stolen your identity.
No, but like I think it's important to, I don't know, to have people like, I really love Tad Carpenter. I love the way that he approaches his designs with like heavy illustration. So like if you've gotten a Sonic cup or bag within the past month or two, you've seen Tad Carpenter's work.
I don't want to sound very basic B, but like I like Saul Bass, because he uses some good colors. He knows his color scheme, and he uses very purposeful design.
Yeah.
As well as Paul Rand.
Paul Rand.
Same with him. These are all basic people that any designer will tell you about, and I'll probably be like, oh, those are just basic people. But if they stick to you, then they're worth it. If you remember them, then nobody can chastise you for that.
Yeah. But I think it's important to have, specific people be influences. I think it's important to look at design history. Some people are like, history? That's boring.
I hate that. Where's the Indians and the cowboys and the compromise of 1322? This isn't math. Turn it off. This is design.
Yeah. I mean, it's important because it shows you what's been done, and sometimes it'll kind of like shed some light onto what you've been doing, and you're like, history is dumb. Actually, my design is very much like Swiss design or
punk rock poster design
or Dada
or my Dada
Da 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 da.
la da 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 da
La da da da.
So this has been the Space Lemonade stand.
Space Lemonade stand in transit. So I feel like if you have any questions for us about design, ask them. If you're in design school, if you are a older designer and you're like, I want to know what them whippersnappers think. I don't know. Ask us.
I don't think they're gonna probably be like, yeah, I don't care about those millennials.
Them dang millennials.
I used to cut out paper letters.
I used to cut them out by hand. Now
Glue
they
them
just
with
go.
with my own spit.
I used to get lead poisoning from the letter press.
I used to put my hand in the dryer.
I used to burn my fingers off.
I used to walk upside down and watch Freakazoid on Saturday morning cartoons.
In the snow both ways.
I used to wear pinstripe only.
Remember when women couldn't drive?
Remember whenever I had to talk into a can?
With a string on it?
I was just talking about just a can.
Just a can.
Just a can.
Just like an old can.
All right. Well, I hope you've had a fun ride with us. We'll see you at Pet Planet or somewhere in between. See you next time.
Bye!